Good evening, namaste. So today I welcome you all to this evening's talk on the Devachanic plane. This is actually the part 2 of the subject, Devachanic plane. And we have our today's speaker, Brother K.A. Adikeshava, Prakash Sastry. He's from Davangiri Lodge. Before we start the talk and ask the speaker to continue his discussion on this part 2 of this Devachanic plane, let us invoke the universal prayer and get into silence for maybe half a minute or 1 minute. And then I'll introduce the speaker and Brother Sastry can take it up. O hidden life, vibrant in every atom. O hidden light, shining in every creature. O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May each who feels himself as one with thee know he is therefore one with every other. Come back. So today's topic, the Devachanic plane part 2, is being taken care of our wonderful young speaker, Brother Adikeshava Sastry. We call him Brother Adi Sastry in short. And I will also give a very short introduction as provided by him about his qualifications and his profession. He's an electronics engineer. Also, he did his master's in Sanskrit literature. What a combination. Good. And he has done his MBA in marketing and HR. Primarily, he is an educational researcher and he's a trainer and a software consultant. So quite a versatile profile and personality. He has been serving the Theosophical Society since 1977. So I see him as a very long-standing member. So his profession and his passion, everything counts in this Theosophical Society. He has been serving wholeheartedly. And I hope he would take us through the Devachanic plane of this part 2 session and throw some inner instincts and light on whatever he has done as an educational researcher. It's always good to hear out to researcher because they come out with new insights, new dimensions, and new philosophies. So over to you, brother. It's all yours. Please explain us on this topic. Thank you.
Can you make me a co-host?
You're already the co-host, so you can share your screen and take it up.
Okay, I believe the screen is visible. So let me.
Yes, brother, it is.
Khandamandalakaram Vyaptam Ena Characharam Padam Darshitam Ena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Taking blessings from the Jivan Mukta Mahatmas. Let's start today's discussion about the Devachanic plane, or the third plane from the bottom, and the mental plane. Last time we had a nice discussion after the presentation was over. So today we will start off with this beautiful quote from Yoga Vasishtha, Namo Drishyam Idam Sarvam. So we will learn, we will come to know what exactly does it mean in presentation. Before we, last time we had a discussion about the intrinsic characters or intrinsic, you can call it as an introduction to the mental plane. So today, as usual, we'll study some of the scientific aspects regarding this mental plane. Especially, we consider now the biological functions of the brain and the mind. Now, we have the brain here. So basically, as most of you have studied the structure and the characteristics and the functioning of the brain has three main portions. Okay, one is the forebrain, midbrain, the hindbrain. In the forebrain, again we have the left, we have the right hemispheres. So basically, our major concern is now on the forebrain. Let's not consider the midbrain and the hindbrain, let's take the biological functions. So, since the forebrain is divided into two hemispheres, one is the right hemisphere and the other one is the left hemisphere, and this left hemisphere is always into physical things, and this right is more occultic. So rather, I'll call this left as more practical. It is more practical compared to the right brain. In the right brain only, all the occultic activities take place. Okay. So the functioning of the brain, rather, I'll call this as the physical mind. It happens like this. See, we have an external stimulus, which is taken up by our sensory organs, and these this stimulus enters the forebrain. How it enters and all that is a biological aspect. We have neurons and other things. Let's not discuss on that. So when it enters the forebrain, in the forebrain, again, as you know, we have two parts. All the signals, they enter the left hemisphere. From the left hemisphere, in the left hemisphere, the signals are processed. So the signals, some signals are taken out, some signals are amplified, etc. So the processing takes place in the left hemisphere, which is the physical brain. And once processing is done, that signal, the process signal, will enter the right hemisphere, and the right hemisphere, again, where the decisions are made, based on previous experiences and all that, and again it is sent to the forebrain for the important aspect of the action. So anything we feel physically should go to the first left hemisphere, and then it has to be processed, and then it has to enter right hemisphere, again it has to enter the forebrain area again. The reactions, whatever the reactions, when we hear something or when we touch something, whatever, all the sensory stimuli, this kind of reaction takes place in human mind. And moreover, when the human is at the lower level of consciousness, that means he's not evolved yet. So here, he is like an animal. So this stimulus enters very fast in an area called thalamus in the brain. And again, this process, which is in the left brain, again, it goes to an area called amygdala and it goes to hippocampus. You see, this amygdala processes, and as you can see, this the whole process is amygdala sends the signals to hippocampus. Hippocampus is it is like a library. It contains what all the previous information we have on for that particular stimuli. For example, let me tell you, hold something which is soft. So that soft may be a sponge ball. So that is already existing in hippocampus. So when the signal enters the hippocampus, that softness, it says, look, this is a sponge ball. So this is where all the previous memory, which is taken from the past, will act on that signal. Okay, so this is natural one. At the lower level of this thing, stimulus directly comes to hippocampus through left brain, and the signal processed, whatever the signal processed, that is more animalic. That means it does not have, if it is either it is good or it is bad. If it is bad, there should be some kind of action. If it is good, you have to accept it. That is how the exactly the brain works, the mind works. But actually, this stimulus has to go to the cortex. From cortex, it has to go to amygdala. But this process is very slow in the lower, with the people or with men or with human beings who are, the lower level of consciousness, lower level of their consciousness. So when this process happens, lower planes act faster than the upper planes. So whatever is happening is in the physical plane as well as the astral plane. That is why I called it animalic. There are only two options, good or bad. Okay, so this is at the lower level of concentration. And this left hemisphere we were discussing, it belongs to the lower mental plane, or is called the Rupamana. So this lower mental plane or Rupamana processes the signal in its own way. Okay. And this left hemisphere, the left side of the brain, hemisphere is left side of the brain, where everything is done. Basically, we do all practical activities through our left brain. The first thing to act is left brain. That I'll give you some examples of that. The left hemisphere resembles the animal instinct brain. Basically, animals, the lower animals, they do not have a developed right brain. So whatever happens in the right brain, as I told you, either it is good or it is bad to me. If it is good, accept it. If it is bad, fight it. Everybody has that. You can just, I'll give you a simple example for that. Suppose we are driving a scooter. Somebody goes in the opposite direction. And, we miss the accident. The immediate instinct of us is to scream at him. Maybe the fault is ours. Maybe the fault is it because he's in emergency. He's coming from the wrong side. That again is in the upper plane. That has to go to our right brain, and then right brain has to analyze. Look, he had some emergency. That is why he's coming in the wrong route. The first instinct what we get from the left hemisphere is the animalic behavior. We scream, show anger. All these stuffs happen. So left hemisphere, as you know, the blue colored one resembles the animal instinct brain. The major function of this left brain is to protect oneself from dangers. Yes, because it is animalic. Whatever, suppose if if we are if we are into some kind of an argument with somebody, so to protect it, we become more logical. So there, the cognitive part of the brain does not come. That is why this left brain acts as our ego, works as our ego. Whenever we have ego, that means me, myself, only for me, you're not allowed. All these activities take place to this left hemisphere, and that is called an ego. So this left hemisphere, it becomes an instrument to satisfy the selfish desires, the basic instincts of a human being. Yes, I have something. I have to only get it. No one else should get what is there. So it is more selfish, me, myself, my family. So it all, because obviously that's a true thing also. When you think of practicality, yes, it is there. First me, myself, then my family, then my friends. All these things come because it is logical. So this left brain is the logical brain, and it satisfies the selfish desires. Again, I'm talking about the human beings who are at the lower level of their consciousness. And obviously, sometimes it acts on us also. I mean, the people who know. Sometimes what happens, we scream at somebody, but that is the animal behavior. But immediately after that, we will feel, yes, I should not have screamed at him. So, the right part of our brain comes into picture. So, these reactions which are there, which are stored in the left hemisphere, they are ancient, they are uncivilized, and they are undeveloped. Next thing is, this left hemisphere is filled with reactions which are pertaining to fear, confusion, greed, physical sophistication, anger, strength. All these things are filled in our left brain. So left brain thinks like that only. Because finally, what we say is, this whole left brain works as a fight or flight. It means if you are strong, I'll flight. Whereas if you are weaker than me, I'll fight. So this is about the parts of brains which for the human beings who are at the lower level of their consciousness, who are uncivilized. But at the higher level of consciousness, what happens? This stimulus, what we got, it makes the fast route into cortex. Is the pranayama, the pranamaya brain. From there, it moves very fast to amygdala. So the portion which enters left brain and then amygdala, it gets cancelled. So it directly moves from pranamaya brain, amygdala. In amygdala, as I told you, is a place where the things are processed. And again, this amygdala has a connection with hippocampus, which is like a library, which has memory stored. So this is fast. So the animalic behavior, what I call animal instinct, is cancelled out for the human beings who are developed, who are civilized. So this is for the people who are with higher level of consciousness. Yes, sometimes what we feel, if somebody, let's say, insults us, we will not react. But our basic instinct, the left brain, is to react. Why are you insulting me? I'm not like that. But people like us are there. So little bit, who are little bit at the level of higher consciousness, will say, he's doing it. Let me not react. Non-reactive mind. That happens, yes, that happens here only, but the involvement of left brain will not be there. So this is about the mind, the thoughts that arise, the immediate thoughts, whether they're animalic thoughts or the thoughts of the higher consciousness. The thoughts which are generated through this process is much clearer, highly efficient, which are compared to the process that happens through left brain. So that's why we call it as occultic brain, occultic part of the brain. So the thoughts that are generated there, they are clearer. Yes, if he is insulting me, let me hear what all he says. Let me not react. Let me have non-reactive mind. He's making me angry. Let me not get that. Let me not go to that stage. So this whole process, you might have seen people. I have seen a lot of the cruel people, the murderers. It is an animal instinct. Look, insulted me, I killed him. Logic is very simple. He cheated me, I killed him. But us who are civilized, we say there is something I should not have. There are some other aspects through which I can fight. So we should always, whenever we see a person who is, that is why we say the controlling of anger, it cannot be done through left brain. It has to go through the right brain activity. The right brain activity, for example, if you feel that you are angry, then we shift onto our right brain. We listen to good music. We listen to some say something, a good meditate. We go into meditative process. All these things, since they are right brain, it gives a great effect to the mental plane. So whatever that happens to this reaction, especially is the right brained one, the reactions are more blissful and it is more occultic. If you see a person who has got a rotten smell, who doesn't have good clothes, animal instinct is to throw him away. And this process, and the stimulus of seeing a person is again an Atman, is like me, Tvamasi. And this was called as Maya. Maya is nothing but seeing through. That's what the scientists say. Should always, since it is logical, we should develop the logical brain so that there should be a good connectivity, faster connectivity between the left portion and the right portion. This happens. This happened to Shankaracharya, Adi Shankaracharya. Because when he met the Chandala, his first instinct, everybody said, go to that side, go to side, Swami is coming, Shankaracharya ji is coming. Even Shankaracharya, for a moment, he misjudged. He said, Koham, Amai, whom we are asking to move away. Then stimulus, yes, that stimulus worked from his right brain. Because obviously the logical brain says he is unclean, unhygienic, he has not taken bath for 10 days or 15 days. Let me not touch him. That was the instinct. It does not leave. See, when we are developing, we should always be conscious of that fact. One moment, even great personality like Adi Shankara, he misjudged that. So that's what Philosophically, we call it as Maya. And later, since we are at a stage where that process, it has come fastly to left brain, slowly it goes to right brain, then we will think, I have misjudged this gentleman and he's me, Tvamasi, you are him. I mean, everybody is same. Vishwabhratritva. So, this is more occultic in nature. And once we develop that, it takes us to a higher level through some kind of things like arts, nature, music, philosophy, peace, brotherhood, by stimulating the right part of the brain. Remember, these are all, they belong to some kind of pantha. They have Bhakti Pantha, Mirabai, Bhakti Pantha of Sharane Akkamahadevi, the famous Sharane of Karnataka. So it's all Bhakti. It moves from one part, one level to the other level. So everything, as per the scientists, is the right-brained one. As Dr. Hawkins says, further research on Tibetan Buddhist monks demonstrated that brain's neuroplasticity, the changes of physiology as a result of meditation. When we meditate, the dependency of us more on the left brain vanishes, so that we think philosophically. Everything is seen in a clearer way rather than being animals. So this is what the present science, the present biological science says. Okay. So this mental plane can be understood to Yoga Vasishtha, which on the basis of Drishti Srishti Siddhanta. As you know, Drishti, the sight, the Srishti, the birth, Siddhanta. There are so many aspects involved in this. So Yoga Vasishtha, it clearly defines the working, different levels of mental development that one can have. So let's study that. As you know, Drishti means the sight. Drishti is a Sanskrit word. Srishti, as you know also, what is Srishti? Let me know. Which is born is Srishti. So, Drishti Srishti Siddhanta says that whatever mind sees, is Srishti. That means, a simple way, we have so many things. I see this pen. Whatever my mind thinks of this pen, that's Srishti. I can see the color, I can see the shape, I can see different aspects of it, I can see how it writes. All these things exist, but also it does not exist. So whatever our mind thinks that it exists, it exists. You can see this happens in even in our general life also. Suppose if you go to a clothing center, you have your own preferences. Your mind sees the color only. Suppose I love blue color, I forget every color. For me, the Srishti is the blue color. For me, the type of cloth is important rather than the color. So all these things. So whatever the mind is, then that is because of the mind. Is nothing. You know, let's suppose nothing has some sort of color on it. If you consider it as blue, it is not blue. any material that exists does not have a true color. Whatever part of the light it reflects shows that color. Suppose it reflects blue color, then we see blue in that color. Suppose you can see the background is blue. No, it is not. It is colorless. Only the light falling it on this one is reflecting blue color and it is absorbing all the other colors. What does that mean? Does that mean that there is no color? Or does that mean there is color? So, if my mind thinks that it is not the color, it is the light falling on it, which is reflecting into my eyes, it is making that thing which I am seeing as blue. That is the real truth. So, either, suppose if it is blue and I am observing it in white light. Suppose if I ask you to see the same thing which is blue in darkness. In darkness, I can't see blue color. I say it is black. For me, for my mind, the existence of blue color is not there. That color is black. If I see it in a white light or sunlight, I can see blue. This is nothing but there is a story which is very famous. I think it is in every language. You see, 4 or 5 blind people explaining an elephant. One touches its legs and says it is like a pillar. One who touches its this thing, he says it is like a snake. One who touches its tail will say it is like a kind of thread. One who touches its stomach, he will say it is like a wall. What is correct? I am a blind person. I have touched the legs and I say it is like a pillar. Suppose even if you are blind and if you touch it and you will say, no, it is not like pillar, it is like snake. So I'll just argue because I have seen what my mind has seen. My mind is capable of seeing. The way you look at it, the way I look at it is different. Again, looking at is not towards our mind. Everything. Color blue may not, anything. The thing I like may not be liked by you. The thing which you like. So, this all happens because of the mind. Mind is either it is good or it is bad. There are only 2 things for mind. Either it is good. The physical stimuli that I get is either blissful to us, either they are making us happy, and either or they are making us feel sad. This is why, as you know, most of you who are not science students, we don't smell through our nose. We don't taste our tongue. Everything is felt in the mind. Everything is felt in the brain. To eat something, same thing, stimulus happens and it reaches hippocampus where the taste is compared by the previous taste we had. Some taste we may find happy, some taste we may reject. This happens. So, simple thing one through which we can say is until when there is no mind which can see, there is no existence of the world which is seen. We are seeing the world because of our mind. If this mind dies, if the mind goes off, dying is not physical death. If there is no mind, if I don't have that mental, this thing, activity, then I cannot see anything. I can see only the truth. Only the truth that the light falling on it is getting reflected, shows me the color, but that object is colorless. That is why science and philosophy, they coexist. Okay, so this is about the mind. The reason for this is mind, the observer. Okay, the mind has two things. Mind acts as an observer, which is observing something. So there are two things. Mind says, I am the observer. There is something called the observed. Principle of duality. There are two things. I am different as an observer, and whatever I am observing is two different things. So there are two different things, me and you. I am the observer, you are being observed. So the principle of duality. And this is given by Manodrishyam Jagat Sarvam. So whatever the Jagat, the world is, it is because of the sight of Manasu. Mana. So Manodrishyam Jagat Sarvam. The whole world is the scenery of the mind. There is nothing, whatever, if your mind feels that there is something, there is something. That's what it says. And you can easily say, the Yoga Vasistha says, the mind is the seed of the world. Mind is the seed of the world. If you have that thoughts, that mental this thing, then definitely you will see the world. Only background for both the observer mind and the observed world, the Parabrahman. You see, you are the observer, there is no difference between observer and observed, but you are seeing it. And the background of it, there is nothing. There is the Parabrahman, Nirgun Parabrahma, omnipotent, omnipresent. Is me, Aham Brahmasmi. That's what the Brahma, I'll call it as Brahma. So, both things are one with each other, but now there is some dvandva. It's called dvandva in Sanskrit. Duality. So the background is nothing but both are same, but there is duality. And when mind dies, when there are no thoughts, in the thoughtless state, the observer become one. So there is no differentiation. So again, I reiterate, we are either observer or observed because of the Maya that we have. But when everything goes off, when we don't have thoughts, when we don't have the difference between the observer and the observer, is one, I'll call it as a nullness. It's a beautiful word in English, nullness. There is nothing, but there is something. What is that nothing? I don't know. What is that something? I don't know. Unless you become one with itself, then only you will understand. That in some religious philosophies, they call it as moksha. You reach that stage, there is nothing. That is the beginning and that is the end, which is beautifully explained by Nasadya Sutta. Na sadasin, no sadasin. सृष्टि से पहले कुछ सत नहीं था, असत भी नहीं, अंतरिक्ष भी नहीं, आसमा भी नहीं. There was nothing. That nothingness completely was engulfed with something. That is a beautiful concept. So when mind dies, or when we enter into thoughtless state, we see that the observer become one. So here, there is no observer as such physically, and there is no observability. Everything is one. And remember, since there are no thoughts, there is no thinker who can think of something and there are no thoughts. Since there is no thinker, again, they are interconnected. There is no thinker, that is why there are no thoughts. But what is happening? Since I am making myself as the thinker, then obviously the thoughts would come out. So there is duality. But when you are a thinker, becomes one with the thought, the process of thought, and there is nothing to think, and nobody is there to think. So this is what Yoga Vasistha says about this thing. And beautiful thing is, there is no experiencer and there is no experience. See, I'm experiencing hot, I mean the heat. I'm experiencing coldness, cold, because I'm there to experience it. If I become one with coldness, one with that heat, I can't experience anything because I am not the experiencer and there is no experience. In physical world, in terms of physical things, there is nothing. There is only oneness. The reason and the reason is the child of the mind. You see, whenever we see something through the mind, our mind finds the reason. And there is something which is reasoned. I say, for example, that food is very spicy. That food is very spicy is only for me, but the people who have prepared, the region in which it is prepared, they eat that only. They love that spiciness. If that spiciness of the food comes down, definitely they will feel. So this is the child of the mind. There is nothing as there is nothing as good or bad. Is good for me, and it is good. It is when what is good for me may not be good for you. As simple as that. Because mind says, you see, we go on reasoning. You see, for example, one who is going into the path of the occultism, the philosophy, or something like that, he lives very simple. People will say, look, he has so much money, he could have earned so much money, he has so much money, but he is living simple. What is the use? The person who is living, living in a very simple way, he will say, what is that? I need a car to move. Simple car, but not the BMW. Because both take me to the destination. If I want to go somewhere, this car will also take me, this car will also take me. Maybe the thing that I'm saying through this thing is, oh, he has got a beautiful big car. So that is why we call it as the child of the mind. Everything is the child of the mind. Whatever happens in the lower planes, it is because of the child of the mind, which influences the physical plane as the astral plane. They are all interconnected. Okay. Maybe, for example, I was insulted somewhere because of my skin color or the accent that I have or the educational qualification I have, whatever it is. That is stored in the hippocampus. That was done by somebody who belongs to certain region, let's say. And I start hating all the people in that region. All the people who are white or all the people who are, all these things. Somebody has insulted me while he was going on a car. I was on a bicycle. So I start hating all the people who travel in car. Reason? I don't know, because somebody has insulted. But later on, look, he has insulted me. There are thousands and lakhs of people who are driving car. They have not insulted me. That is the second aspect. So the reason and the thing which is reasoned is the child of the mind. Mind plays an important role. And even the time, the space, the creation of the mind. See, we say time and space. Space is nothing but, let's consider field around something which is measurable. The time started as per the Big Bang theory, the creation of the universe. The time started when soon, exactly after Big Bang. So before that, there was no time. Space also. Everything was into a small, into a mass with high energy. So there was no space then, only after Big Bang. So everything started at the time of the Big Bang. So in Nasadaya Sukta, please study Nasadaya Sukta, which is available in Google. They say, Namastadagre. So there was something, there was nothing first, but something came to its mind that it expanded. So that means there was some thought, that whole thing that created everything. That's what the Nasadaya Sukta indirectly says. So everything, whatever we see, is the creation of the mind. Because mind also have timeless and spaceless thoughts. Mind can work in future, or mind can work in the past. Everything happens where there is no time space, Jordanian time space limitations. Okay, now let's see some of the paradoxes which exist here. Whenever we have some occultic paradox, it cannot be solved by reasoning and mind power. You cannot reason anything away, everything. There are some things which may not look like a correct reason for the physical world. So these paradoxes, just for example, let's say there is something called God. I call it as God. God, either it is existent or it is non-existent. I say God is existent. You may say God is not existent. Are you an atheist? No, there is nothing called God. There is nobody called God. So there are two paradoxes. The people, suppose if I give you 100 or 200 reasons to say that there is an existence of something called God, you may reject it all. And the reason you give for non-existence of something called God may not be accepted by me because I believe in the existence of God. So you can see here, again it's a duality, and this is completely extreme duality. Either it is there or it is not there. But there is one more thing which is in between one side and the other side, two extremities, that is called the truth. So in theosophy, we study theosophy, we follow theosophy because we know about the truth. So this truth neither believes on the existence of God nor rejects the idea of non-existence of God. It says, you may be right, you may be right. Let me find it out. Let me see. But all there is an existence of God. The characters, you may say existence of God as Rama, Krishna, Shiva, whatever it is. Let me check it out. There is some truth. The truth is different from these two extremities. So I am interested neither in your propaganda or neither with this kind of propaganda. I want to see the truth. So these are the paradoxes that we see. Sometimes we have seen, we know this. We, we always say this. Bring it to our consciousness is a difficult task. The existence of God is one of the paradoxes. I'm just giving an example. So how exactly these paradoxes are born? How exactly they are born? This is done by the mind. All these paradoxes are the creation of mind, because mind fears the danger its own existence. Maya, which is stronger. We say we are engulfed by something called Maya. Yes, our mind says, because when we discussed our thoughts, what happens in thoughts is we just left out something. When you get something, our brain releases a chemical. It's called dopamine. Dopamine. Amino acids, they react and they become dopamine. There's something called dope and amine. Dope is a word which is known to the present generation. Dopamine, when it is released, we feel happy. Suppose I eat I take inside the food that I wish to have for a longer time. That chemical is released, which makes me blissful, and I want to experience the same thing again and again. And this dopamine release can be done in many ways. That just I told you. For example, I achieved, I got what I wanted, what I dreamt of. Dopamine is released. We get really excited. This has happened to everybody. If you are a human, dopamine should release. It helps in everything. The learning, new learning happens, or if you are a fast learner, the amount of dopamine that is released is heavy, is very high, so that you can learn more. So everything depends upon this dopamine. This can also create, so we want to achieve more and more. For example, today I have covered one of the smaller mountains. I was excited, dopamine. I was very enthusiastic. Now, my aim will be to go to the higher level, maybe to Mount Everest, or K2, whatever it is. Because I've experienced that blissfulness. This is something called physical blissfulness. This can be obtained, these are all natural. Naturally, this can be obtained from dhyana, or it can be obtained artificially also. A few people take up the narcotics, the drugs, and that becomes a habit, because every time you have to reach to that level. That can be done only, some so-called sadhus and all these people, they smoke the ganja, because ganja makes them happy, makes them release that dopamine, and they get addicted to it. They think, oh, that blissfulness is a temporary one, but they think, oh, this is what the whole of moksha is called, which is very bad. So mind creates paradoxes in every moment of our life, because it fears of its own existence. Because when existence of mind is not there, then all the higher planes can be achieved. The major goal is to move past this devachanic thing. So what are these? You see, this is paradox, and these boundaries that govern the mind, they are not limitless, they are only limited. Because what it's already explained to you. I see the color, shape. That is what my limitation is. You see a lot of other things. That is your limitation. Somebody else can see beautiful things. For me, if I am observing things, the only two things I observe is color and shape. So that is the limitation of my mind. So mind has a boundary and it always works in the two extremities, which is very important to know. It always requires two extremities. This is why Gautama Buddha advises to reject the path of these two extremities. He says, be in the center. And which are those? We will just have a glance at it. For example, he says, one is called raga, the other one is called dvesha. Both are at the different complete extremities. Satisfaction, rejection. Extreme luxury, extreme body troubling. Okay. So, as per Buddha, be free from the influence of mind to travel in the middle plan. So, we should not take both the extremities. So, which are those extremities? This is given by the mind and the pendulum. So, mind and the pendulum can be, for example, at one side we have raga, is the satisfaction. The other end is dvesha. There is something the middle path also that you can see it here. For example, satisfaction is the discipline. Let's say raga is one of the discipline that is giving punishment, punishing our body, punishment. Or we can be extremely, indisciplined. So one is high discipline, the other one is extreme discipline. Both are, they're not good. But there is one center aspect. As you see, the pendulum which comes to center and rests is the freedom. Both are required, but it should be a certain extent. For example, the other extremity is the habits that we have. The habits we get is anger, violence, or selfishness. These are the inborn one. The other one is pure patience, pure non-violence, and pure generosity. These both are wrong as per Buddha. There is a middle path which is in the equilibrium position. You should have patience. Also, you should have anger. That is the right anger. Okay. That is the right, you should show a right anger at the right place. And one more extremity is the pleasure. Pleasure we derive with some things. And the other extremity is sorrows. So either you are completely overconfident or over optimistic, or completely over pessimistic. So there is some middle path called self-culture. Okay? Accept pleasure. Whenever there is some pleasure, you will be happy. Whenever there is a sorrow, you will be sad. But it will not last for longer time. The third one is, let's say, approval. Approval of anything, approval of system, approval of your tattvas, whatever it is. And the other one is the condemnation. So it is two extremities. So you should not approve anything in the path of occultism, and we should not condemn also. The best path is to observe silence and think. So non-reactive, being non-reactive. And one more extremity is the external consciousness. This external consciousness, and the other extremity that we find is the internal consciousness. So these two are the extremities, and there is something called silent consciousness. Suppose I have to take care of my body. I have to look good. I have to smell good. I use makeup. I use scents and all these things. Extremity, wrong. Again, living your body like that only. What I am into path of occultism. No, both are wrong. You should have the center one. Yes, the physical body is required for your further growth. So take care of the physical body. But don't take it too much. That's what. And one is the past, the other one is future. So there are two extremities. That's why Buddha says, live in present. So the center path should be accepted, and one extremity is complete belief on God, existence of God, whatever it is, and the other one is non-belief, which I generally term it as atheism. Both are wrong. Correct one is best path is to find out the truth. So our mind, it oscillates to two extremities. We have to control that. That oscillation should be stopped at the middle for further development of ourselves. There are high desires, high renunciation, highly greedy, highly forget everything. No, everything should be balanced, and there should be some absoluteness. Desires should be there, they should not be there. Renunciation should be there. It should be like water on the leaves of lotus. So this extremities, this is the character of the mind. So mind acts in two extremities, and there is one center path. We have to follow that center path. So by this we can observe which side are we, this extremity or this extremity. We should introspect ourselves, and we should continue the journey of occultism. So this is what we discussed. What today we have discussed is about the characteristic of the mind. So we have learned how mind works, physics, in science, what does it say, and what does the extremities, how they go on. And finally, we have to choose a path which is which should be, at the center. That's what the whole topic of today was. So I thank you for giving me an opportunity, because I've taken time. I was supposed to finish at 2:50. I mean 8:15. It's already 8:34. Thank you very much for the cooperation you gave me. Namaskar.
Yeah, thank you, Brother Sastry. Yes, it was very elaborate, and it is good that you explained it on a physical level of the brain. And just add on to this, I thought I should share one example. Maybe in one such forums, a child was asked to draw a sky, and the child drew and painted it pink instead of the blue sky. So it just clicked to my mind when you say that, no, like, it's up to you. Whatever the mind is seeing, that is what the object is like. We all project what we see. So beyond that seeing, beyond that basic organs which operate on our physical level, there is something higher, and something on the higher plane. It occurs to us, it strikes us, and that is how the physical brain is also impressed upon by something beyond the physical. Thank you so much for touching upon this in very detail. I wish we had enough time to discuss further. However, since a couple of people I can see, I would request anyone wants to add something at least for 30 seconds. I mean, I'm being very, I might sound rude, but let us keep our additions for 30 seconds each, whoever wants to contribute to this with any example, with any personal experience. And we cannot probably do the question and answer today. So anyone from the audience could please add on to this with the time limit of 30 seconds each, please. Then we'll go for the closing prayer. So you can volunteer, and whoever wants to share can open the video on audio. I can highlight, and then we can listen to it. Anyone wants to add something? Okay, so we would conclude this session with the prayer, and maybe after the prayer we can again observe 30-second silence to absorb what we learned, what we heard, and what we saw. Okay. Sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukhavag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you all for attending this session, and we'll continue to do our Friday and Saturday sessions. And tomorrow at 10:30 on this very link, we can join also for the Young Indian speakers, Young Indian Theosophists talk. So see you all on time. Thank you all for attending this. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Adikeshava. Good, you are a scientist.
Namaste, sir. Shinde
Namaste,
sir.
namaste. All the best for you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, you were there.
And you know, it is very important to synthesize science and religion because both must go hand in hand. Science without religion is lame and religion without science is blind. That is what Einstein said. So any religious practice which does not have scientific background result into blind faith. That is what our Theosophy preaches, and you have brought to all of us on that line. Thank you very much, and thank you, Suvralina, for all this conducting and all this. Thank you very much.
Sir. Thank you, all of you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Brother Sastry.
Thank you, sir. Namaste, sir.
So I'm
Namaste,
closing
namaste.
the session. See you all in next one.
Thank you.